Joe Biden finally stops buying Russian oil, but his solution doesn't exactly fix the problem. Also, protesters over a bill in Florida have apparently taken to just shouting the word gay repeatedly. Apparently, that's all leftism has become now. I'll also answer the question, should we help Ukraine, and if so, to what extent? We'll explore all of this and more today on Right Side of the Road. So on Tuesday, President Biden announced that the United States will no longer be permitting the use of Russian oil. And this is a good thing, except Biden is weeks late. Anyway, here's his announcement.
We're banning all imports of Russian oil and gas and energy. That means Russian oil will no longer be acceptable at U.S. ports, and the American people will deal another powerful blow to Putin's war machine.
Again, this is a great idea. One problem is he did this 3 weeks late. He should have started this right when he could see that Russia was going to invade soon. And here's the second problem. According to basic supply and demand, which a president probably should keep in mind when doing something like this, when the supply for our oil goes down and the demand remains the same, the price goes up. So now that Biden has cut off all Russian oil, he needs some source to replace that. It seems that Biden's doing this on kind of a slightly moral level. He doesn't want the United States to be funding the Russian dictator Putin, and this makes sense. So naturally, Biden would go to a place that he feels better with, he feels okay with doing dealings with. What is his solution, you ask? Venezuela. And if you aren't familiar with the situation in Venezuela, here's a little background. So, the country of Venezuela is torn into pieces. The currency was inflated, all of the gas and oil industry was nationalized, so all of Venezuela's residents are living in abject poverty right now. They are essentially being run by Nicolas Maduro, I believe I pronounced his name right, who refuses to hold a fair election because he's been thrown out, or because he's going to be thrown out if he holds a fair election. The people in Venezuela are eating raw animals to survive because of their terrible government, and that's who we want to strike a deal with? By the way, that terrible leader, Nicolas Maduro, has not even been recognized by the United States as the leader of Venezuela. We've recognized Juan Guaido. You get the idea. Who is the opposing leader in Venezuela, that's who we've recognized as their leader. We're going to a terrible person and a terrible leader who doesn't even run Venezuela according to our own government for gas. We're giving Maduro money, and he'll just use that to continue oppressing his people and people in other places such as Cuba. Biden has stopped buying Russian oil to stop funding them and their terrible communist regime, so our solution is to go fund the bad people in Venezuela. Maybe we can go to China and North Korea and just kind of spread the money around to fund as many terrible people as possible. That is the goal, isn't it? Because, you pay your taxes to Joe Biden. That's all I'll say on that issue. This is setting aside the fact that Venezuela's oil industry is torn apart. Their output is nowhere near what it used to be, and all of their equipment is outdated, and most of their workers fled when the economy started crashing and everything. And that whole thing about Russia trying to stop Russia seems not actually to drive any of Biden's policies, because Venezuela is allied with Russia. They've been openly working together literally for years. I can't believe how insane this is. There is a solution we could have used, but Biden never wants to accept it. So how about we just become self-sufficient in terms of natural gas and oil instead of some kind of Green New Deal? That would work. As soon as Biden entered the office, he shut down a pipeline that was being built known as Keystone XL. That pipeline would be lowering gas prices today if he even just started it again. It would allow for us to directly import oil from Canada, and it would go straight into Texas in a refinery and be distributed across the United States as gasoline. And it would greatly lower demand and stop us from having to import it overseas. We could also just start drilling for oil on our own land. We wouldn't even have to pay other countries and import it. Why won't Biden do this, though? All of this is rooted in Biden's stupid environmentalist policies. And I know I say stupid to things that I don't like, but this is actually idiotic. Truly a dumb policy. Biden is pushing wind turbines, and other solar instead. Solar that only works when it's sunny outside, and then wind turbines that only produce minimal energy when there's a breeze. And when there is a breeze, they chop up birds. Which, come to think of it, might be a pro. And then it sounds like So what sounds like a better solution? We use natural gas and oil that guarantees our country energy, or we pray to Zeus or whoever Biden actually worships and to change the weather so we get some energy that day. And the argument against Keystone XL was that it wouldn't actually lower gas prices, and that was true when Trump was president. and that was because gas was at its usual $2.50 a gallon. It would stop us from buying as much oil from Russia, which would be good, but it wouldn't do too much for prices at the current state. However, if the pipeline was operational right now, as it would be without Biden, it would be lowering our gas prices. And the argument against drilling makes no sense at all whatsoever. Biden always says he doesn't want to drill because he's worried about the carbon footprint or some other nonsense. That makes no sense. All Biden can do is talk about our carbon footprint and then pay other countries to do exactly what we would have done on our own. I don't understand. Okay, we need to move on before I start yelling louder. I want to cover a topic I hear a lot about, and that is the debate over whether or not we should help Ukraine and to what extent. Grammarly certainly seems to think so, because as we speak, on this script right here, I see a yellow line under Grammarly, and then it says what I can do. Grammarly's telling me what I can do because, Ukraine has a lot to do with grammar. I'm sure they're very familiar with Russian. And I don't know, but Grammarly's now like all blue and yellow with their icon. Here's what we should actually do, though. We can sanction Russia all we want as long as it doesn't hurt the American people. It's okay to aid Ukraine, but we don't need to be wasting lives or ruining our economy. The reason for that being we don't have any connection to Ukraine and it is inconsequential to us. I apologize for that background stuff. When we start doing things to Russia that cause huge inflation in the United States, or when we do things that cause gas prices to skyrocket simply because we can't find a solution, like we're doing right now, there's a problem. We can ban Russian oil all we want, but we need a solution to the problem after that. Sending in troops is a terrible idea that is indefensible in any way, shape, or form, though. If we sent in troops, we would be wasting American lives for a country that has no connection to us. We would lose countless soldiers in a battle that doesn't even involve us. That's the first problem. The second is, once we get militarily involved in a war against Russia, Russia can and has a good reason to attack us. There are two ways that goes. Russia has a huge stock of nuclear weapons either way. So either Russia just nukes us straight away to get on with it because they don't want to get involved with a war like with planes and ships, or they attack us with the planes and ships first. I have full confidence that the American military would decimate them in maybe a week because if Russia used its full fleet, because Russia's still kind of fighting with Soviet-era weapons, then they'd launch a nuke because it's the only thing they'd have left. So either way, when we get militarily involved in this war with Russia, it leads to terrible, terrible things. Also, why does America care this much about Ukraine? I get that there are civilian lives at stake, but what is so different about Ukraine? Every day, terrible regimes kill civilians in China. China kills Uyghurs all the time. Or places like North Korea. Take Venezuela, for example. These are terrible tragedies, but why don't we go help them? Why don't we send troops and money to the people in China or North Korea or Venezuela? Because it would be costly and it wouldn't help America in any way. Not to say that we just need to be prioritizing America's interests, although we mostly should. Not to say that their lives don't matter any more than Americans do, but there's nothing we can do without crazy costs for our country, and those are costs we don't need to take. So there's a bill that just passed the Senate in Florida that was affectionately named the Don't Say Gay bill. Now what this bill actually does is prohibit the teaching of gender theory in schools to kids K through 3rd grade. The crazy protesters on the left had said that it prohibits the teachers from even saying the word gay, and that's not actually what happens at all. So let's read some of this bill and actually look at it. This is from Florida's website itself. This is a description of the bill. It, quote, requires such procedures to reinforce fundamental rights of parents to make decisions regarding upbringing and control of their children. Semicolon, prohibits school district from adopting procedures or student support forms that prohibit school district personnel from notifying parent about specified information or that encourage student to withhold from parent such information. Prohibits school district personnel from discouraging or prohibiting parental notification and involvement in critical decisions affecting students' mental, emotional, or physical well-being. And I apologize, I stopped a few times, said semicolon, because it's like a very brief description and a summary, and it's not actually written with full grammar in mind. Grammarly's also still screaming. This is also being protested by the crazy woke left. The part of this bill saying that this is a part of the bill that saying that schools have to notify the parent. They can't withhold information from the parent, and the actual bill specifies what they can't withhold. And that is if the student essentially, quote unquote, comes out if a teacher learns that the student has come out as gay or transgender or anything under the LGBTQRSTUV spectrum. So now here's where the don't say gay part comes in. And it's not actually true, it's just where they get it from. This bill, quote, prohibits classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity in certain grade levels, end quote. So here's what that actually means in the context of the bill. Teachers cannot instruct kids about any of this. It doesn't mean they can't say the word gay. It means they can't instruct kids. And I agree with it. I think this is great. The only problem I have with it is it applies to only K through 3. I want it to be all grades, including college and then your jobs. And maybe if I were king or something, I would truly make it so people can't say gay in schools, but you can only hope. But now we get protesters who are literally walking down school hallways just chanting the word gay. And that's what leftism has become. They went full force into the woke narrative, and now the only word they can say is gay. And it truly is. Leftists want to look virtuous in front of other leftists. And this is how they do it. It's wrong, and it's making America a mess. On that happy note, we have sadly reached the end of this episode. Biden has no real solutions to our gas problems, so expect gas prices to skyrocket in the coming weeks. Florida passes a great bill, but the leftists don't seem to think so. Thank you all so much for watching. You're listening to Right Side of the Road, and I'm now ending every episode thanks solely to Joe Biden. Go get him.